Hello, and welcome to our exciting new series, Katz Conversations, where you will get to know our Katz Institute for Women's Health clinicians on a deeper and more personal level. My name is Alexa Tibbin Sanfilippo, and I'm thrilled to have Katz Institute for Women's Health clinician member, Dr. Nina Vincoff, Medical Director and Vice President for Clinical Initiatives and Patient Experience at the Katz Institute for Women's Health, and the Division Chief for Breast Imaging. Welcome, Dr. Vincoff.
Thank you so much, Alexa.
So the first thing we wanted to ask you is what drew you to this field of medicine?
I think I was destined to be in women's health. My mom is a doctor. She's almost 87 years old now. She was the first person in her family to go to college. And then when she went to medical school, she was one of 3 women in a class of 80. And she was always surrounding me with women physicians. Her gynecologist, my pediatrician, my first internist, all women. And I actually think growing up that I thought that all doctors were women, and it came as a little bit of a surprise to me afterwards to find out that they weren't. But I think what was really impactful for me as like a girl and as a young woman was being taken care of by women physicians. And I think that's what laid the groundwork for me to want to be in women's health. Then I went to medical school and I thought I was going to go into OBGYN because that was the most traditional women's health field. And then I met amazing mentors in medical school who showed me that actually you could be a radiologist and you could still be practicing women's health. So that was what I did. I did my training in a combination of both pelvic and breast imaging. And that's what I did for many, many years, actually, until I came to Northwell. I was doing both. Since I've been at Northwell, I'm just doing breast imaging. But I have no regrets. This is what I was meant to be doing. And I never forget, like every day, that I could be one of my patients. Like I could be somebody with breast cancer. My mom had breast cancer. Like I never forget that I could be walking that path. And so I just think it's super rewarding to be taking care of patients that you can imagine being in their position. And so you're not only taking care of their health, but you're just trying to treat them the way you would want to be treated if you were in their spot.
I love that. All right. So what has been the most rewarding and challenging experience in your career?
I think the most rewarding thing, as I said, is just the opportunity to take care of other women. I think, the most challenging thing for me is around breast imaging itself. It's been around sort of the confusion in the messaging around breast imaging and trying to help women understand which screening guidelines are for them when every time you turn on the news, it seems like there's different guidelines. And it makes people wonder whether mammography is really as valuable as those of us in imaging think that it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to ask, what's one thing patients should know about your field? Or what's one misconception about your field you want patients to know?
I think a lot of people don't understand what a radiologist is. So they think that the person that's like taking their x-ray is the radiologist. And for the most part, that's a technologist. And I think that they also don't understand that it's a radiologist, it's a physician, a doctor who went to medical school and did training that's reading their images afterwards. Their doctor who sent them for the imaging, for the most part, is not the person that's reading their images. And I think that comes as a surprise to people. The other misconception I think that people have about breast imagers is they don't realize how intimately involved we are in the care of our patients. So we're not just the people reading mammograms, but we're the people that do the biopsies. And then we're the people that call you up on the phone afterwards and tell you whether or not the biopsy showed cancer. And then if it turned out to show something that needs surgery, we're the people that are partnering with the breast surgeons and the oncologists to figure out what the best way is to plan your treatment. And I think a lot of people don't imagine that. They imagine we're reading the mammogram and then after that it becomes somebody else's problem. But no, we're actually part of the entire treatment of our patients. And that's actually what makes it so great.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I don't even think I knew that you did all of that. So that's great to hear. Okay, so what dreams do you have for your career or your field?
For our field, I would love to see breast cancer screening be more personalized. We talk a lot about screening guidelines, but the screening guidelines that you hear about in the news are for the average risk woman, and none of us are average. And so if I had a dream, it would be that every woman had screening guidelines that were tailored to their specific risk. So I'd love every woman in her early 20s to know, based on her own personal history and her family history, what her risk is, and then to be able to partner with her doctor to plan what the best way is to have an approach to screening. And that's just something that we just don't do enough of that right now.
How do you manage your work and life balance, being a clinician and everything that you do?
That's a tricky one. I think one thing that I've learned about work-life balance is the whole idea of how you're going to balance work and life changes as you change. So, I did my training in a really, really academic place. And I think the people there assumed that I would have this academic career and I would be writing papers and doing research and publications and speaking at national conferences. And when I got to the end of my residency, I had my older daughter, and I just realized I didn't want to have that kind of a career at that time. I wanted to be able to work. I love the work that I do, but I wanted the day to end and then to be able to go home and have family time. And I did that. For 16 years, I was in private practice. And it actually wasn't until my older daughter left for college and my younger daughter started high school that I went into the job that I have now. And now all those things that I put off doing, I do those things now. I'm writing papers, I'm doing research, I'm speaking in national conferences. And so I think the message for women is you can't have it all, but you can have a lot of it. You just can't have it all at the same time. And I think when you take that pressure off of yourself and you realize like life is long, your career is long, and you don't need to do it all at once or all at the same time. And I think the other key to work-life balance, I've definitely found this in my career, is paying attention to the people that you work with. When you're choosing your colleagues, it's really important that they have the same values that you do. So when I was in private practice, I had all of these colleagues. We were all around the same age. We were at the same point in our careers and in our families. And all of us wanted to get to the parent-teacher conference and the school play and the sports game. And we helped each other get to that stuff. And, now that I'm in a position where my kids are older, for my team, I know how important that is for them. You can't take care of other people until you're taking care of yourself and your family. And so if people come to me and tell me that they have outside of work obligation, something for their family, you don't need to tell me anything more. Go do that. Like, that's important. But you need to make sure, if you want to have balance, that you need to be surrounded by other people who also value that balance. That's been like critical, I think, to my happiness in my career.
I love that. I love hearing you say that you might not be able to do all of it right away together, but eventually you can get it all done. And I think that's wonderful advice to give. So, how do you provide hope to your patients when they might be afraid?
So a lot of my patients are afraid. They're actually afraid of two different things. So one thing they're afraid of is just having a mammogram, right? They are afraid of the results. They are afraid that maybe they're going to have breast cancer. And that's like super scary. And I think the way that I talk to those people is to just try to flip the narrative a little bit in your head. You can't prevent yourself from having breast cancer. There's nothing you can do, but you can empower yourself by having a screening test so that you're going to find it as early and as small as possible, and maybe make your treatment easier or increase the chances that you're going to go on and lead a long, healthy life afterwards. So that should make you feel powerful rather than afraid. And then the other people, obviously, that I speak to that are afraid are the people who have, unfortunately, newly diagnosed breast cancers. And, for those people, I think it's really important to know you're not alone. 1 in 8 women have breast cancer, and the vast majority of those people go on to live long lives afterwards. So lean on them, hear their stories, get support from them. And I think the other thing that's really important when you're feeling afraid is to remember that, especially in a place like Northwell, the people that are taking care of you are not just your surgeon or your oncologist. We have a whole network of other kinds of support services. And if you need those things, take advantage of them, social and psychosocial. I think that, we're in a place here where we can not just take care of your health, but we can actually take care of your well-being. And wherever you go to get your cancer treatment, you need to make sure that all those other pieces rather, are in place, that they're going to treat you as a whole person, and they're going to hear you and listen to you and understand like what your needs are, what your values are in your approach to your care.
Great. Yeah. I think my biggest takeaway is that you're not alone. And I think that's so true.
You are not alone. That's the scariest thing, is feeling isolated, right? I mean, this really stressful thing has happened to you, and then you just feel like you're out on an island. I think one of the things that I find with our patients that they like the most is when I tell them that we have a navigation service that will just, even if it's just taking the stress off making appointments, like, how do you find a doctor and how do you get on their schedule? Just the idea that somebody could help you find a doctor and make those appointments for you, that you're not on top of hearing this news, just lost in terms of what do I even do next, I think is so important for people.
So now we want to hear about what's another passion you have outside of medicine.
Yeah. So I'm a New Yorker. I love New York. So, I raised my kids out here on Long Island. I was originally grew up in Westchester, did my training out in California, came back here, raised my kids on Long Island. But the entire time I told my kids, like, don't save a lot of stuff in the house, because as soon as you're out, we're out. We're moving to the city. And that's exactly what we did. So when my younger daughter left for college, literally within months, we had packed up the house and we moved into the city. And I just love taking advantage of everything that's in the city. I love the restaurants. I love the museums. I literally, in my wallet, have the membership card for every museum in New York City. I love the shows. I love live music. I am out there doing stuff in the city all the time. I had a little bit of a weird transition from my suburban life to my city life, because I moved to the city right before the pandemic started. I got there, unfortunately for me, in February of 2020. But once we got through that initial part of the pandemic, I've been taking advantage of everything you can take advantage of in the city.
I love that. It's great. All right. So now we're going to do some rapid fire questions. So I don't want you to think. We're just going to ask these questions and see what you say. Okay. All right. So what's your guilty pleasure?
I love sushi. Like, I could literally just eat it for every single meal. Like, I think I could live in Japan, where they start with the raw fish for breakfast and they just go all day long. I never, ever get tired of it.
Love it. All right. What's the last great book you read?
So I have a shelf of amazing books about women's health that have been given to me by Dr. Rosen. She's constantly handing me books. So I think the one that I like the most right now, that I just finished not long ago, is this one that's called Sex Matters. It's not about sex. It's basically just about how sex and gender make a difference in the way that we take care of women across every single part of their body. And we think about women's health as being sort of the bikini areas, breasts and pelvis, but sex and gender matter for everything from your head to your toes. And I'm so impressed by the groundbreaking doctors who have continued to try to fight so that we give attention to all those different areas of women's health.
All right. What is one of your hobbies outside of medicine?
So like I said, everything in the city. I also love traveling. I'm that person. I actually just came back from a trip to Italy. I did 10 days in Tuscany. I'm that traveler that wherever I go, I've decided I want to live there. So usually by day 3, I'm looking at the real estate listing. I'm telling my husband, this is where we need to move to. And it doesn't matter where it is in the world or even in America. Everywhere I go, I want to move there afterwards. I just love seeing how other people live and imagining what my life would be like if I lived in those places. I never get tired of that.
Great. All right. What do you hope your legacy will be?
I hope that my legacy will be that we're seeing women as individuals, that I'm part of a revolution where we think about women and their needs as being different than men, that we think about men as being different than women too. I wouldn't mind if my legacy was just that we looked at every individual and treated them using the lens of sex and gender, so that we make sure that their specific needs are being addressed. And I hope that I can be part of that going forward, and teaching the next generation of doctors to, every time they take care of a patient, to look at that patient through the lens of sex and gender, to make sure that they've made that a consideration in their diagnosis, in their treatment, and thinking about what the risk factors might be. I hope I can play a role in that.
Great. Okay. What's your favorite movie?
When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, it's one of my
literally,
favorites
without a doubt, no hesitation. I've seen it probably 100 times. I will never get tired of it. I was actually on a plane recently and I just had it playing again. Like, I will never, ever get tired. It has everything I love. Like, it's got like the great jazz soundtrack in the background, and it's like New York in the fall, romantic comedy. My husband always says that I only like movies that start with two people who don't like each other and then they end up falling in love. That might be true. So if you ask me for like a longer list of movies, probably all the movies fit that criteria. But When Harry Met Sally is my number one favorite.
Love it. All right. And last question, sweet or salty? This is a hard one.
No, not for me.
No?
Salty. My husband calls me the salt monster. Like, if salt is opening up anywhere in the house, like any bag of salty snacks, I cannot resist it. I can hear it from any place in the house, just the crinkling of the bag opening on like a bag of potato chips or something, like a bag of potato chips and sour cream and onion dip. Like, I could just eat that forever. I think that's why I like sushi. Like, I throw so much soy sauce on that thing. There's no doubt. Salt's the way to go.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Vincoff. This was really wonderful getting to know you, and I'm excited that we'll be able to share more about your story. So thank you for taking the time to join us and learn more about our Katz Institute for Women's Health Clinicians. And don't miss our next Katz conversation.
Thank you so much.